Mr. Secretary, what is the authority that the administration is using to deploy active duty Marines to California neighborhoods? What authority?
Senator, the president has constitutional authority in order to support.
Cite the provision of the Constitution.
I'd have to pull up the specific provision, but our Office of General Counsel, alongside our leadership, has reviewed and ensured in the order that we set out that it's completely constitutional for the president to use federal troops to defend federal law enforcement.
Look, I'd like to know the specific constitutional statutory authority. The president made it clear that he relied on Section 12406 of Title 10 with regard to the National Guard troops. I need to know the authority that he is relying upon in terms of active duty Marines being deployed to California neighborhoods.
Senator,
so you'll follow up with me?
Yes, Senator, but there's
Thank
plenty
you.
of precedent of active duty troops being used to support law enforcement, historical precedent.
I'm not disputing that. I am just asking you to cite the authority under which the active duty Marines are being deployed to California
It's in the order, ma'am,
neighborhoods.
but we'll make sure we get it to you as well.
Thank you. I want to dovetail on a couple of other comments also with regard to the lack of specific detail in the budget request for the Department of Defense. I take great pride in Wisconsin's contributions to our national defense, and that includes many Wisconsinites who are hard at work building the Constellation-class frigate. There is no mention of frigate procurement, just like Senator Collins noted that there's no mention of destroyer procurement in the budget materials that you provided to this committee. My state makes the frigate. I'd also note that there's no mention of the destroyers, as I said. So really, we are looking at a very incomplete budget request when we are just 4 months out from the beginning of the next fiscal year. Mr. Secretary, this committee takes the appropriations process seriously. I take the hard work of Wisconsin's shipbuilders seriously, and I'd like your commitment to provide this material to the committee expeditiously so we can do our work.
Senator, we'll make sure you get all the information, but what I would say is this is a historic investment in shipbuilding, both the defense industrial base and ships. In Wisconsin, and particularly related to the frigate, it's been a program with a lot of problems and a lot of delays and a lot of modifications that have led to serious
Navy
challenges.
has called for many modifications to the plan.
I'm not saying that's it's all the fault of the shipyard. There are many ways in which modifications were made that changed an existing design so extensively that it led to a ship that was not even capable of the original mission it was supposed to execute. So our job is to make tough choices on some platforms like that may not be funded the way they were in the past, because we have to make some of those tough choices.
Well, we don't have any of the detail right now of what your plans are with regard to the frigate or the destroyer, and we need that information to do our jobs. Can you get it to me?
We have that information, Senator. We have worked in real time in 4 months to reverse a lot of priorities from the previous administration. We have those details and that information, and we will get it to you.
Well, the committee needs those details. So this committee has also worked hard alongside the department to improve recruitment and meet retention goals. The department is planning to separate several thousand service members due to your partisan beliefs about troops who are transgender. Mr. Secretary, I've seen your speeches and social media posts, but what I'm interested in is the sound policy analysis that we would expect from the Secretary of Defense on how this misguided decision will impact military readiness. My colleagues and I have requested this information from you, and we are still waiting to receive it. And so I will ask you now, what assessment did the Department of Defense conduct prior to implementation to evaluate the impact that this policy would have on our national security? Moreover, what is the cost to recruit and train thousands of individuals of comparable experience and skill.
Thankfully, recruiting is not an issue. It's at historically high levels, and we're proud of the cross-section of Americans that are
What
joining.
analysis did you do?
We did extensive analysis, Senator, and we agree with the assessment of the executive order that was issued by the White House that there are mental health issues associated with gender dysphoria that complicate military service and readiness, and as a result, we made the decision.
I have asked for that analysis. Please provide it to me and the committee.
We will provide it.
And then, Mr. Secretary, I think we can all agree that we are at a critical point in our history with respect to global threats that need to counter adversaries like China and Iran. You've gotten a number of questions along those lines. And I'm disappointed that you are instead focusing on a class of ships named for civil rights leaders. You chose Pride Month to direct the Navy to rename a ship named for Navy veteran Harvey Milk. This committee will continue to pursue serious work in the interests of American national security, and I ask you to choose to join us in that endeavor.
Senator, we're not interested in naming ships after activists. That's the stance we're taking.
All right, where we are, due to
The relationship between the Department of Defense and the Senate Appropriations Committee is defined by a fundamental constitutional requirement: transparency in the exchange of federal funds for national security results. On June 11, 2025, this relationship faced a significant test as Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth appeared before the committee to defend a budget and a series of domestic deployments that have reshaped the legal landscape of the mid-2020s. To understand the latest updates, we must first analyze the jurisdictional authority for domestic military operations. A central point of contention in this hearing was the deployment of active duty Marines and federalized National Guard troops to California neighborhoods. Educationally, it is vital to distinguish between the two. The administration cited 10 U.S.C. Section 12406 as the statutory basis for federalizing the National Guard. Historically, this provision allows the President to call the Guard into federal service to repel invasions, suppress rebellions, or execute federal laws. However, the use of active duty Marines, Title 10 forces, under a claim of inherent constitutional authority rather than the Insurrection Act represents a novel and highly debated legal strategy. For the viewer, the takeaway is the Posse Comitatus Act, which generally prohibits the military from performing domestic law enforcement duties unless expressly authorized by Congress. The current debate centers on whether defending federal law enforcement constitutes a valid exception or a bypass of established statutory norms. The discourse then moved to the industrial base and the critical state of American shipbuilding. Senator Baldwin's focus on the Constellation-class frigate and destroyer procurement highlights a growing crisis in naval acquisitions. As of late 2025 and early 2026, the Constellation-class program, originally intended to be a rapid, off-the-shelf design, has faced severe delays and cost overruns due to extensive U.S. Navy-specific modifications. This provides an important lesson in requirement creep, when a proven design is altered so significantly that it loses its original advantages, leading to what Secretary Hegseth described as a ship not even capable of the original mission. This budgetary gap is a direct threat to the two-ocean Navy strategy, as these frigates were designed to alleviate the operational burden on the aging Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. Simultaneously, the committee examined the personnel and readiness impact of the administration's new policies. The decision to separate transgender service members, reinstated following a Supreme Court stay in early 2025, is framed by the department as a move toward one force and military excellence. However, from an educational perspective, the focus is on readiness assessments. Senator Baldwin's inquiry into the cost to recruit and train thousands of replacements highlights the economic and operational friction of sudden policy shifts. The audience must understand that in a modern, specialized military, the loss of experienced personnel in technical roles creates a skill gap that cannot be instantly filled by new recruits, regardless of how high current recruitment numbers may be. The hearing reached a symbolic peak with the discussion of the USNS Harvey Milk. The directive to rename ships named after civil rights leaders and the elimination of identity months at the Pentagon represent a major shift in the culture of the force. By choosing to rename the vessel during Pride Month, the administration signaled a departure from previous traditions of honoring diverse veterans. The educational link here is the Secretary's discretion over naval traditions and asset naming. While the naming of ships has traditionally been used to foster national unity and honor historic figures, the current policy prioritizes what the department calls the warrior ethos over activist recognition. In summary, the 2025 appropriations hearing reveals a Department of Defense in the midst of a profound structural and ideological pivot. From the legal precedents of domestic deployment and the strict scrutiny of federal authority to the harsh realities of naval procurement and personnel management, every segment of this hearing serves as a lesson in the mechanics of governance. These are not just partisan disagreements, they are fundamental questions about the limits of presidential power, the efficiency of our defense industry, and the definition of a ready and capable force in 2026. By following these developments, we gain a clearer understanding of how the latest updates in Washington will dictate the safety and security of our nation for years to come.